very strong here, picking up a few points on the Hill Preem. Now over in Magdalen, we can see Alex Stida pushing the pace here, trying to form a little breakaway here. Have a look at his bike, too. He's riding this unique bike here with an Allsop beam suspended out there, giving him a soft ride, and apparently, Alex claims, a much smoother ride, saving him energy, less energy cost throughout the race.
Joining Stida now is Jacques Landry and Jeff Pierce in a four-man break.
And the field is still all together, though strung out as they go through the series of turns at the top of the course.
Lunch break 3 minutes later on the back of Marine Drive, and here comes Roberto Gaggioli. He attacks.
A surprise attack here. Really not the moment in the race when you think an attack like this would work, especially by a noted rider such as Roberto. It's early in the race. There's no hills for a long way in this part of the course, and everybody's just taking a little break, but he keeps them on their toes, and if they don't go with him, then it could be problems, because if he builds a lead of a minute or more, all of a sudden Coors Light is just going to shut down the main pack, and there's a problem situation for the other teams.
He gives way to Yvon Waddell in the pink in the Evian team, and up front is Chris Koberstein of Team Magic Cuts.
A lot of power up front there, but it looks like the main field is calling his bluff this time, and they're going to shut down that breakaway.
Well, there's still an awful long way to go as Koberstein and the rest head downhill. We will head to a commercial break and continue as the Tour de White Rock rolls on CTV. Prix from downtown Vancouver, but we are on the road. The Tour de White Rock with 11 laps to go, and a fellow from Hamilton, New Zealand, Steven Swart, is climbing Magdalen Hill.
Swart is really pushing the pace here. You can see the riders starting to falter behind him, and only Tim Lefebvre of the Evian team is able to stay with him.
They stayed together for 6 minutes longer. Later on the beachfront, a two-man breakout.
It's interesting to note here that Swart, though a very strong rider, does not know his competitors too well in Canada here. He hasn't been part of the whole series. He doesn't really know this rider that he's now got to form an alliance with off the front of the main pack.
Back in the pack is Roberto Gaggioli, and these guys don't look too concerned about the two guys up front.
It's a very difficult course here, 2 hard hills per lap, and unless the breakaway can build up over 2 minutes and in fact work together, and you can see Swart there not too happy that Tim Lefebvre doesn't want to do too much work here. He's a little concerned about the hills. And this is the problem that Swart faces, not knowing his Canadian competitors too well. Perhaps if he'd known Tim better, he would have been a little bit more cautious to go away and try and build up such a lead with just 2 riders.
And Steven Swart has had enough of that. 2 is now 1. Lefebvre has dropped off.
This puts the whole Coors Light team and Steven Swart himself in a tough position. Do they continue to block for him? Does he keep the pace up, or back off a little bit, hoping somebody can come out of the main pack and join him?
8 laps to go. You see Jeff Pierce and Jacques Landry trying to pick it up.
The pace is really heating up now. You know, the strong riders start to feel that finally the hills are taking their toll, weakening their opponents and giving them a chance to get up the road and really gain some distance on the main pack.
A very lonesome rider on the road all by himself. 7 laps to go. 14 minutes later, here is the chase group. And there is Steven Swart.
Still very smooth and efficient, maybe backing off on the pedals just a little bit, hoping that this group, probably getting information from his team captain, his manager on the side of the course, that there is a breakaway form behind him, and that wait up, join these guys, and then try something later in the race there.
And finally, 10 minutes later, Swart is collared.
Brian Walton heading the breakaway there. This is the kind of move Brian knew before the race he had to create. Try and narrow down his opposition, draw some of the better riders out of the main pack, and then slowly but surely tire them out one by one.
And so we are back in a pack, and Chris Westwood is there, Scott McKinley, Yvon Waddell wearing number 5, Team Evian. Colin Davidson, number 2, comes up. Here comes Jacques Landry, too.
Most of the strong teams represented here. A very good breakaway if these riders can cooperate, but almost too much in this breakaway. When you get such a great mix as this, no rider wants to advantage his opponents, and it could falter, and this will give the pack again a chance to come back into the picture.
In the picture now, Jamie Polinetti. 5 laps to go. At the top of Magdalen Hill, Colin Davidson.
Colin really saw the danger there. You know, as we looked past him to the bottom of the hill there, you could see the main pack right on them once again. It had all started to come together. These riders really had to put the hammer down, draw it out, find out who's really got something left in this race.
Great support on the side of the road. Jacques Landry. Here is Brian Walton inside with Team Motorola, the lone rider here, and Colin Davidson wearing number 2. He is leading.
Colin really driving the pace here. You know, he faltered for a moment there. The other riders came alongside him, but then as soon as they got over the top, the pace is down.
And guess who's back in front again? Steven Swart.
What a ride he's having today, you know. He's, as I say, he doesn't know these riders too well, but he's testing them every bit of the way, watching them closely. He knows there's one man he can't let get too far, and that's Brian Walton.
The lead group of 4, and behind them, with 4 laps to go, another breakaway group, Kenny Adams, Roberto Gaggioli, and Jeff Pierce. Can they catch the lead group?
With the momentum that lead group has, it doesn't look likely these riders can close, but they are well clear of the pack and could be going for 5th through 7th spot.
2 laps to go, back to Magdalen Hill. Brian Walton putting the hammer down again.
A well-timed move with still 200 meters of climbing to go, enough that he can really distance himself from those other riders as he goes over the top here. Shifting into a bigger gear, and then out of the saddle again as he powers onto the flat part of the course. Checking once again over his shoulder, recognizing that he's got at least 100 meters.
But look who's behind him again. Steven Swart, and it's amazing that this fella still has stuff left in him.
What an effort he made. You know, he just waited for the 2 Canadian riders to make their moves, see how close they could get to Brian, and when they'd expended themselves, he just blasted across and closed that gap in a matter of about 500 meters.
Closed it, and now is in front of Brian Walton, but not for long as they jostle down the hill on Marine Drive.
Brian's tactics have worked very well so far. He has been able to draw all the strong riders off the front, work them, share the pace with them, really draw their energy out to the point where they can be vulnerable and he can get an attack over the top of the hill and then keep reducing it. He's taken it from 8 to 4 and now to 2 riders, and he's got the one big unknown there with Swart, a very strong and wily rider.
There are a couple of unknowns behind, too. A last sip of water for Jacques Landry, riding 4th. Colin Davidson is riding 3rd.
2 strong riders, and they're only 10 or 15 seconds behind, so if there's any cat and mouse between these 2 leaders, if they stop cooperating and really start jumping each other, all of a sudden 3rd and 4th could be back in the picture, and we could have 4 riders at the front of the race.
There's Steven Swart, and there is Brian Walton running 1 and 2, and Walton going for it again.
4 kilometers to go in the race now, and Brian has really put it in his top gear, opening up, giving it everything he has. Not even looking behind, just concentrating on driving forward, pushing as hard as he can.
This is the last lap. This is Steven Swart, the Kiwi, from the Coors Light team.
Now 5 seconds behind Brian with 3 kilometers to go.
And there's Brian Walton. Downhill now all the way to the finish line, but there's still a lot of race left in Steven Swart, or is there?
Brian's, I'm sure, anxious at this point. You know, he doesn't know what's happening behind him. He's imagining the worst, thinking all 3 of his chasers are together and forming a big effort to get back to him. So he's not holding back, giving it everything as he comes down the finishing straight.
And here it is, just a few hundred meters to go, and it's Brian Walton. Delta, BC is his home. You can hear the crowd. The finish line is in his sight. And welcome back home, Brian Walton. He wins the Tour de White Rock. And so Brian Walton is number 1. Stephen Swart of New Zealand finishes second. Jacques Landry of Quebec City is third.